We are so thrilled to have you all here in person, also online. Thank you so much for attending. My name is Elise Krickow. I am the Chief Philanthropy Officer here at the Maryland Food Bank. I have the pleasure of working with Carmen and our esteemed speakers, as well as our philanthropy team, to make sure that we raise awareness about the Maryland Food Bank and also raise the important funds so that we can do what we need to do. So again, thank you for your support. Coffee Talk is really about engaging you all with what's happening here, current events, how we're engaging with other organizations, how we're engaging with individuals who are like-minded and want to make changes in our communities that we serve. And so it's really an opportunity to get outside of our walls and talk to others. So with that, the Coffee Talk started, I think it's all blurring together, maybe 4 years ago. I think this might be our 6th at this point, but time has really gone by quickly. I just want to let people know in the room here, we have Coffee Talk with Carmen mugs. So if you're lucky, I have this gold Sharpie. Carmen will sign one for you before he leaves, since it's his final Coffee Talk. We also have a lot of mugs, so you got yours signed, right? We have a lot of mugs, everybody. So either we have to get rid of them or the next CEO will have to take the name Carmen. So those are just 2 things. So take your mug on the way out, please. For those of you joining us online, let us know if you'd like one. We're happy to deliver. So thank you. But seriously, I know you're going to enjoy today's discussion. We have 2 wonderful panelists who will be speaking with Carmen, Dr. Carolane Williams and Nakia Coleman. Dr. Carolane, I had the pleasure of getting to know last December. She is in charge of a Pantry on the Go event. And we were able to volunteer there and really serve neighbors. She's going to talk a little bit more about her organization and what they do. So I think you'll find that really engaging as well. Nakia is one of our Speakers Bureau members, and she is a person who came online during the pandemic, literally online. And also she came in to be, I think, trained on speaking and getting out there and sharing her story. Our goal at the Maryland Food Bank is to ensure that we use neighbor voice in all that we do. And Nakia and others are helping us lead that charge by sharing their stories, by speaking to others, and informing our work. So very important for us that we're not sitting here in Baltimore deciding what to do in different communities. It's really neighbor voice helping us figure that out. So very important to us. So with that, today is going to center around a little bit of a look back on the last 5 years. It is the 5-year mark of COVID. At that time, the awareness of food insecurity went up a lot. We were all over the news. It was national. But food insecurity existed before the pandemic, and it persists today. And so we do want to focus a little bit on those lessons learned from the past 5 years, but we also want to look ahead. And we'll be leaning on the lessons that we learned and the strategies that we developed to guide us in the next 5 years. So we have a very dynamic climate going on around us. So we're going to lean on what we've learned to help us find our North Star and look ahead to how we're going to address food insecurity throughout the state. So thank you so much for being here. I'm going to stop talking now. It is not Coffee Talk with Elise. But for those of you online, if you have questions, please put them into the Q&A. Kat Thomas will be managing that, and she will let us know. For those of you in the crowd, just raise your hands later. We'll have time to talk. So thank you.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Elise, for that introduction. It's funny you're talking about the mugs, because I remembered I was going to ask that same question. Like, I know you're playing this up as the last Coffee Talk with Carmen, but I see a ton of mugs back there or something, and it's a sneaky suspicion I might have to be invited back.
Yes.
It reminded me of a story. Most of you know I was in the banking business before I came here, and 40 years ago I was in our training program on the retail side. And I was working with a woman that was down south, and I had informed her that her account was overdrawn. And she said to me, "Young man, I can't be overdrawn. I still have checks in my checkbook."
Oh.
So we still have bugs in the mail. You either got to find another Carmen or you got to invite me.
Yes. And we'll have you.
Thank you both for joining. I think as Elise said, I mean, dynamic was the term that she used in terms of the environment that we're in. It had been easy for us to spend some time today focusing on all that noise that's out there, right? And the somewhat negativity around that. There's a perfect storm brewing on the horizon here for the Carolane Food Bank. We're already seeing increased food prices. That's affecting our neighbors. It's affecting our business model. We're already seeing some funding streams that are available to us that have been already have been eliminated. That's going to cause some challenges for us. And we know some things are on the horizon that we're also going to increase in need in communities we serve, things like SNAP cuts, which serve 9 meals every meal we provide, right? So it's easy for us to spend the next hour or so just focused on that and how we're going to respond. But I think what we need to focus on instead is kind of flip that coin over and realize that, like the pandemic, when we went through those challenges, right, all the uncertainty that centered at that good time, and we came through that, right? We survived, and we learned, and we grew, and we got stronger. And so I think that's really where we want to focus our conversation today in terms of where that's brought us and how that's going to position us for whatever uncertainty we're facing in today's current environment. So thank you for joining us today. I think it's going to be a great conversation. And I think, as always, I couldn't carry that anywhere near alone without some terrific co-guests here, or co-hosts, I should say. So as Elisa made some introductions, Dr. Carolane Williams is the Director of Ministry at Christian Life Church. Mm-hmm. That's the right title, Director of Ministry.
Benevolent Ministry.
Benevolent Ministry. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And Nakia Coleman, a member of our Speakers Bureau, as well as Habitat for America.
Yes.
So thank you both for joining. Why don't we start with just take a few moments to introduce yourselves and your organizations, if you don't mind.
Okay. Well, my organization is Christian Life Church. And as we stated, I'm the Director of Benevolent Ministry there, which encompasses people in need. And of course, the Pantry on the Go falls under that. And so we help people when they come in crisis, whether it's with eviction, rent, food, housing needs, whatever it is, we try to help. But, you know, we really can do what we can do. And so we have to look at resources that are in our community, you know, to help us do just that. Because that's part of our mission, is serving people.
Right. Where are you located?
At 6605 Liberty Road, at the corner of Liberty Road and Patterson.
And how long have you been working with the food bank?
Since 2020.
Oh, there you go. There's a COVID win.
That was a good thing about 2020, is that it allowed us to partner with the food bank, because prior to that, we really helped on a case-by-case basis. People would call the church, they needed some assistance. We couldn't always offer it because it was strictly volunteers at church bringing whatever they had, and that's what we had to give. So we could serve very few people. But with the 2020, when COVID came, one of our members came and said, you know, I helped out with another organization and they were working with the Maryland Food Bank. Why don't we contact them? Because they're looking for community agencies and churches and that. And so we did. Uh-huh. And wow, did it make a huge difference, because we could then serve hundreds rather than a handful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nakia, how about yourself?
I am Nakia Coleman. I am a member of the Maryland Speakers Bureau. As she mentioned, I became a member in COVID. And so I saw a Facebook posting about being an advocate and putting your voice out there to be a voice for the voiceless. So I was like, this is an amazing opportunity. So I went online and we had our classes online. We learned about advocacy, public speaking, facts about the food bank. And so for me, it really was impactful, because this was an opportunity for me to be a voice for the voiceless, and really full circle for me. 23 years ago, as I was speaking to someone, my daughter now is a student at Morgan State University. I myself found myself needing support and assistance and resources. I was a single mother, pregnant, and had dreams. I was accepted into law school, so I had my 5-year plan, all planned out. And then life happens, life be lifing, as they say now, right?
Yeah.
And so I had to pivot. right? And so I became someone who was on a Section 8 voucher. I was receiving SNAP benefits, Medicare, all of those supportive services that people who rely on those needed. And so the Maryland Food Bank really was instrumental because I remember walking into the apartment community that I lived at, not able to pay my rent. And I went in there with the failure to pay rent notice, and I said, I can't pay my rent. And the manager said, well, you need to take the paper and go to Community Assistance Network, go to CAN. I was like, what is CAN? So I went there to get the support, but in the midst of all of that, they directed me to Hannah pantries to get food supplement. So for me, this is just an opportunity where crisis an opportunity for me to be able to speak to others. In my professional life, I'm a regional property manager for Habitat America. I just was promoted last week, so I'm proud. Hey, regional property manager. And so Habitat America is a third-party management company who has properties, Maryland, DC, and Virginia. And we manage properties in affordable funding. So everything from Section 8, which is 30% of the income, to low-income housing tax credit. We also partner with other agencies to take what they say portable vouchers. So really the goal is to provide decent, safe, and sanitary housing to those that need it. So I'm proud of that professional work that I do as well.
Awesome.
Yes.
And you're part of, I think, our second cohort, because we've had,
Yes.
Speakers Bureau, we've had 2 cohorts so far, third one on the horizon, and they've been critical in terms of our mission work, especially around advocacy. Some folks have been able to join us in Annapolis as we advocate for various legislation, not only around food insecurity, but other things that support neighbors in need, as well as you probably have spoken to other groups, you speak
Yes.
to other organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So the more we could allow folks to hear from others who have walked in those shoes more so than we can do as the Maryland Food Bank from Healththorpe, the more effective we can be and the better we can understand the needs of our local community. So you're going to hear about neighbor-centric, neighbor voice as a focus of ours, because that is incredibly important for us to ensure that we're providing the right food at the right time in the right way in the communities, being the most dignified experience that we can. So friends in Speakers Bureau, how big was your cohort?
It was 11, 15. It was a nice group of us. Yeah, all online. I didn't know any of them. I was excited when this beautiful building was built. We came together. We were able to kind of meet, and we have our own little chat where we're supporting each other. I know Janelle Woodard, she does some food pantry and giveaways, I think on Saturday and Sunday. So it's been exciting to kind of see them when we meet up. So yeah.
Dr. Carolane, you came into this space from another industry as well.
Yes, my career was spent in community colleges, and that's what brought me to Baltimore is I assumed the presidency of Baltimore City Community College. Prior to that, I was in the Air Force. And so both of those things kind of fit together to make me know about need, because you think people in the military, I worked in public relations in the military, and you think people, they got it made in the military, but there are people in need in the military, because they move around a lot and their families move around a lot. And so we saw need in the military. And of course, community colleges are based on people in the community. You can start from wherever you are, whether you're don't have your high school or whether you're brilliant and don't have money. you can start at a community college. So there are these needs that are out there that we sometimes don't think about. And that's one of the things that we learned during the COVID, when it first started, was that we had to debunk some of those notions of what need looks like. Because there can be, suddenly things can happen, just like COVID, and people are not, their day-to-day, what's common is no longer in play. And so, we had to pull our team together, that we work with, which is a very wonderful team. But we said, we don't care what they drive up in. We're not going to look, oh, that's a such and such car or whatever. And so what are they doing here? because things happen. Like you said, life be life, and life can change, and it did for many people. And there was an uncertainty. And we realized that not only was it the food that was necessary, but it helped balance some of the other needs. So we could get the food, the boxes out, but also interaction, because people would stop and they just wanted interaction, just to see somebody. And so it's sort of a whole person type of approach that we needed to look at. Like you said, you went to one agency, you found out about this and found out about that, and that helps you. And so that's what we have aimed to be, a resource and pass information out while we're doing the food.
And I think also COVID took color, it took economic status, it took all of that away.
Yes.
Right? Because everybody was facing the same situation. I know for my husband and I, my husband is in law enforcement, I'm in housing. And so we were considered essential personnel. Everybody was like, oh, you're essential personnel. And so we wore that with a badge because we had to be out there still in the community, right? The great part about that was that we did not lose employment. We still worked. However, we faced our own challenges. One of the challenges for us was in the midst of that, my daughter was in high school. So now we had a child at home who typically would be in school, would have lunch in school, sometimes breakfast if she chose. Now we were trying to figure out how we're going to navigate making sure she has enough to be home while we worked, right? And then we also faced our own insecurities. Just because we were essential personnel, especially in his job in law enforcement, he was in contact still with a lot of people. So there were times where he caught COVID, had to go into quarantine, myself in the same situation, and we didn't get paid for those days. So we went from a family who seemingly went to the grocery store, able to purchase, to now we were navigating food drop-offs, who was going to have chickens, who were going to have eggs. I wish, now with eggs, who was going to have the eggs. Yeah, I know. Who was going to have the fresh produce. And so, for us, it really was an eye-opener because it was not a challenge that we had to face prior to that.
Right.
And so I do think for a lot of us, we had to learn how to pivot.
Yes.
We had to rely on community. In the midst of that, my husband's most prized possession is his truck. And that truck, as you see, that truck became sort of the community truck, because I had elderly residents in our buildings and some of my neighbors who couldn't get out to places that we typically didn't go to. There were places, Waverly and different places in Baltimore City that we would never go to because we were in our bubble. And so we became kind of like the transportation pickup to help others. So I think it removed a lot of that, and it also brought a lot of people together, but it opened the eyes of food insecurity that it could happen to anyone. Right.
Yeah, the face of food insecurity changed dramatically, right?
Yeah.
These are our neighbors now. We're facing it and family members in some cases. And so that was really powerful for us that we saw that community coming together, neighbors helping neighbors and trying to navigate through this on their own.
And it also helped too that partners who, for instance, we had established relationships with other churches, because some churches had pantries, like that are open certain days a week. We didn't have a pantry, but there's the church like 3 blocks away that has a pantry. So, fortunately, and that's another kudo I'd like to give to the Maryland Food Bank. They have all of these places. So we just did a search of all the pantries within 3 miles of our area, so that we could give out to people when they come for the pantry on the go, so they would know where other sources are, in addition to literature on, like now, the electric bill, how do you pay the electric bill, energy efficient, all this stuff. And so we had to look at that to make sure, pass those out. So we're being a resource bank, whereas that church has been down the street for like ever, and we've been where we are, and we never the twain shall meet. But because of COVID, and because people were coming, there was a sense of real community. We needed to partner with each other in order to get resources out to the community.
Yeah, I appreciate you hitting on that. I think, we have our network is 700, 800 organizations strong. And so one of the things that we've been very focused on is figuring out ways to connect our network partners together. And so I appreciate you giving us credit for that, but really, as much credit needs to go to the partners themselves, because you have to open yourselves up, right, to serve others, to share resources, resources were pretty scarce, whether it's volunteers or dollars or what have you. And so your willingness to do that, I think, was critically important, not only during COVID, but hopefully something that you've now integrated into your routine. So talk a little bit about what has changed, if you will, with regard to how you guys operate today versus 5 years ago.
Well, 5 years ago, we did very much the pantry on the go. And so, we had
that for a second, because people know what that is.
We had a real routine going. We got this down to a science. You pull up, we analyzed our parking lot and the traffic flow, and we did all of this. And you pull up, you pull around, you open your trunk, we put a box in there, and then you keep it moving. And you either went to the blue tin or the orange tin. And, we really had that just sort of down to a science. You just pull up and go and everything. Like I said, sometimes people wanted to just stop and talk, and we would, but you got to keep it moving. Or either pull over to the side.
Go talking with that.
But we've gravitated now to the farmers market. And we weren't very sure about the farmers market, but we were able to find another Maryland Food Bank organization that was doing the farmers market. So we were able to go there and see how it operated, because we thought, how's that going to operate? Farmers market, people are parking, they have a need to park and get out of their cars and what. But at the same time, we saw the value in allowing choice. Because, with the boxes, you got home, opened the box, and you got what you got, whether you, wanted it or not. But with the farmers market, we realized, especially upon seeing it, that people could pick. So if you didn't like squash, then leave it, because he likes a lot of squash.
Not me, but somebody else.
And so that way we could, we could more tune in to what people's needs were. And now that's morphed into, how do you prepare certain foods? Because we love the idea of fresh fruits and vegetables, because it's so good for people and it's very costly. See, it's pretty costly to eat healthy. It really is. You would think it would be the other way around, but it's costly. And so now one of our church members, who's a registered nurse and a dietitian, and she's developing meals. How do you prepare cabbage so that how do you prepare sweet potatoes? I told you a funny thing about, we love sweet potatoes, especially in the Black community, but, you got to pour on the syrup, sugar, butter. Absolutely. And of course, it morphs into something that's not even close to healthy. And so what kind of recipes can we do with the cabbage or the sweet potatoes or the cucumbers even? What can we do? And also, because diabetes and heart disease is prevalent, what are some tips to help with reducing the diabetes or the heart disease? Just a handouts that can help people when they come through, because people were asking, what can you do with this? And then people would stop and talk. Well, again, go over there because we got to keep the line moving. And we're actually seeing an uptick in more people coming and younger people coming.
Fantastic.
Younger people, it used to be older people, elderly people. And I always say older because I said old people coming, and someone said, what, older than you? So it's older people.
Yeah.
But now we're seeing so many young families, like with children, and they're coming because they have to.
Need access.
They need the access.
Yes.
And they can't afford it with the rent going up and the food going up and the utilities going up and everything's going up. So they really need access.
And I think I want to get to your experiences during COVID, but one of the things I wanted to hit on there is that, again, that's a reflection of the environment that you've created, right? We talk often in the food bank about being a food bank of choice. We want to provide variety of offerings. We want to educate folks on how to prepare that as healthy as they possibly can. And we want to provide offerings that are relevant to that community also, right? So this is where neighbor voice and speakers bureau and feedback like that really is critical. But your ability they're coming to you now because they feel comfortable coming. You're creating a dignified experience. You're creating access to food that they otherwise wouldn't have access to, where before, I think some organizations are, we're trying to encourage more and more of our partners to think in those ways, because that will provide people be more comfortable coming and being taking advantage of those services, which they also find that goes beyond just food, right?
Yes.
So you've come to an organization where pre-COVID you were kind of one-offing things, right? And things needed, to a situation now where you've become community-centered, a community center, and much more broad in your focus.
Yes.
So kudos to you for doing that. Obviously, retirement hasn't served you particularly well. So I'm not going to take any lessons from you on that. So, how about yourself in terms of during COVID? What kind of things you talked earlier about the role that you played as kind of as someone who was providing services to neighbors and to other friends? I mean, what else did you kind of experience during that time that kind of resonates with you today?
As I mentioned, just community. It really heightened my sense of helping others in any way possible. But also just with my professional career working in housing, how housing and food insecurity really are, they work in tandem, right? As you mentioned, your organization has persons who come and get assistance when they're behind in their rent and et cetera. And so those of us in the housing field really had to step up because we became social workers. We became sort of adopted mothers and fathers, because kids were home alone because they were out of school. And if their parent was an essential personnel, they still had to work. And so we had to figure out, for a lot of us who were experiencing our own personal challenges, how can we help others at work? I always tell, my crew at work that your job description, you don't get paid for the black and white, you get paid for duties defined as others. And so in COVID, we did a lot of the duties as assigned, which was really, like I said, to become social workers, adoptive parents, sometimes just a shoulder to cry on. So for me, it really was about learning about others, community, and really advocating for those that didn't know how to navigate these waters as well. Of course, housing is a business. And so on the corporate side, we work with owners who, they are charging us to make money, right? However, collect the rent, because you have to pay the lights, you have to do all of those things. But when you're seeing families that can't afford the rent or afford food to eat, what do you do? And so that's where my role really became a champion for them, and finding partners like yourself to be able to say, hey, you can go to this food pantry, or trying to network with them to come into the community, right? One of the things is food deserts. A lot of those communities are in food deserts. They are not local stores for them to get to. So being able to access a store, or even some of the food drops, being able to get to it was not possible. So, bringing that resource into the community, which is why I love what we do at Habitat America, is because a lot of our properties bring those resources inside. We're really looking at a holistic approach in that, my senior properties, we had congregate meal programs that we partnered maybe with a local Department of Aging to make sure seniors getting a meal. Because we also know they have other challenges that I'm not thinking about right now at this stage in my life. They're aging in place. So they're thinking about final life expenses. They're thinking about prescriptions. They're thinking about insurance. They're thinking about all those things that in a multifamily environment, they're not thinking about. And so being able to really advocate and help those. And the Speakers Bureau was instrumental in teaching me how to do that, and really to be like boots on the ground, grassroots.
Yep.
You know, that really is what we are. We are that listening ear or the face for somebody, for me to say to somebody, I've been where you are, really. I have been where you are. And it doesn't always have to, you don't have to stay in that your story is not your history, right? And so that's why I enjoy what I do in this realm with you guys, because it allows me to be able to do that. And in COVID, I really was able to send that message.
Awesome. Thank you very much for saying all that. A couple of things come to mind as you all were talking. I think one, just going back to what you were just talking about, one of the things you'll see from the food bank going forward is a role we're calling community navigator. That's exactly the role you're playing. There's someone who is a trusted individual in that community who has experience with dealing with some of the challenges that others are dealing with, and your ability to kind of connect people with resources, handhold somebody through a process, put your arm around them when they have a challenge, we think is an important role for someone to play in the community. And so kudos to you for playing that role. And we see that as an important function that we want to try to promote within our organization, is having more and more folks like you in communities all across our state doing those kind of things.
Well, thank you for trusting me with the voice to do it.
Absolutely. And that's really important. I think the personal testimony is really important for putting people at ease, because I've seen our volunteer base just grow amongst members in our church, because as I listen now, I see that they have similar stories. You know, they haven't had a life of always having enough. And some of them were in positions with COVID that, you know, were negative. Right. And so found themselves in need. So I think those personal testimonies really do a lot for helping to uncover the need base and the face of need, so people feel more comfortable rather than suffering alone. You know.
Yes.
And you talk about housing, right? So we talked about root causes of food insecurity, and that's going back to our advocacy work, why we're focused on things beyond just food legislation, right? Because housing, transportation, workforce development, healthcare, right? So we're constantly advocating on behalf of those supports to ensure that people have the resources and aren't having to allocate resources to those needs, which then creates more food insecurity. And so from our perspective, that's why we broaden our advocacy efforts to beyond just food, because we know there's factors that are contributing to food that if we can find a way to influence or reduce, then ultimately serves our neighbors and our nation that much better.
Yeah, and I think that's important. You know, no one decides that they want to face food insecurity or they want to be hungry, right? So there are root causes. And what are the root causes? And that's why I say housing and food insecurity are in tandem, you know, because, you know, you hear some hunger advocates, so anti-hunger advocates talk about, you know, heat versus eating, you know, in the wintertime. You know, people having to make a choice about paying utilities to stay warm or getting food, right? Or rent eats first. You know, we know on a budget model, housing is at the top of most persons' budget models because they are trying to prevent homelessness, right? And so you see where parents scale back their eating because they are trying to make sure their children or their families are eating. Seniors not eating properly because prescription costs, final life expenses. So, you know, I want people to really look at the root causes, and that food insecurity and housing are not two separate issues. They really are interconnected in that way, because, you know, there is a cause and effect of everything, right? And so, you know, bringing those resources to persons, transportation is an issue. You know, we talked about the access, affordability of housing. Is an issue, right? You need to be able to make sure that you can afford where you live. You know, the realm that I work in, a lot of the housing is based on income. So a lot of persons are on very fixed incomes. You know, my seniors, they get a Social Security and a pension, and that comes one time a month, right? And so they're trying to navigate, I got to pay my rent first, and then everything else comes after. And sometimes food is at the bottom of their list, realistically. So I think it's important, as you're talking about root causes, that we really, really start to study that, because there are cultural root causes. There's, you know, income. I remember doing, we did the Feeding America panel, one of the speakers' bureaus. So she lives in Talbot County. I didn't realize that Talbot County had such a huge wealth gap. That, you know, in the state of Maryland, you have a county that has the 1% are millionaires, and then there are persons there, she mentioned, that still rely on the food bank,
Yeah.
can't be able, are not able to afford to feed their families. And so I think we really, really need to study that. That is important. And I'm glad that you're thinking forward in that way.
Thank you. Thank you. When I'm hearing both of you talk about how you dealt with the issues of during the pandemic, people use the term pivoting, people use the term agility, and I think those are true. I mean, we at the food bank, we use that time. I think what I would say, one of the things that come out of food bank for us, COVID for us, is this building this what we call muscle of innovation. We've built a muscle to be able to respond to challenges in a way that bring some creative solutions to the table. So we opened up a program called Mobile Markets. It's allowing us to get to smaller, hard to reach communities. Right. We have started Speakers Bureau. We've expanded our FoodWorks program. We have expanded the array of product we provide. We've engaged in dialogue to understand the types of product that are unique to certain communities and certain demographics. So we've built this kind of muscle that I think will serve us extremely well coming through the pandemic, and it's going to serve us well going forward as well. And so maybe we can talk a little about what you see in the horizon and how you think that some of the things you've done is going to help you in the years to come.
Well, you know what? We've, again, my organization is a church. So it is our mission to be out in the community and addressing some of those needs. But what has been, we've created an impetus now, moving from COVID. Well, first moving from, just a little bit that we could do to help people with their food insufficiency or whatever. Then into COVID, in partnering with the Maryland Food Bank, we were able to do a whole lot more in terms of numbers and fresh vegetables and things like that. And so now we're moving more towards the holistic, partnering and looking at other resources in the community that we can easily get out to the community because they're coming through. But then also our church is looking at a wellness model. And so we're having a wellness workshop to address the not just spiritual, but physical and mental needs of our community, so that it comes together, it's well-rounded, and it comes together because, like you said, Nakia, it's not just housing over here and food over here and, mental health over there. And, it's really one person and one family and one, so we have to look at all of the needs, bringing those people together. And we're willing, to do that. But it started with the little seed of the food,
Exactly.
but it's kind of morphed into all of this. And so we want to keep it going. And that's why we're looking at addressing and bringing in some resource people to talk about mental health needs. That's a big issue. Food is a big issue. What to do with the food is a big issue to make it work for you. Health. Physically, how do you want to use this food now to become healthy, to become healthier? And therein jobs. What about jobs? How can you get into something that will sustain you further? So it all has to begin somewhere. And so it's been that somewhere. And actually, I COVID was bad, but in that regard, it was good because it started the dialogue, it started the conversation, it started the thinking process. It started us to look differently at, defining need in that.
How many people do you serve, would you say?
Our food giveaway, we serve like 300.
Okay. And how often is that?
It's once a month. The second Saturday of every month. But there's some months that we have to skip for other reasons, but usually it's the second Saturday of every month.
And how's that number compared to 5 years ago, would you say?
Well, 5 years ago, we served like 5 families, because again, it was strictly member participation if they had, donated or whatever. And what we had, the resources that we had. And then too, it wasn't as structured. So, if members brought canned goods, we always had to look at the canned goods, to make sure that they weren't expired. And, because we didn't want to give out expired food, of course. So just very minimal in terms of that. in order to help people because, again, the benevolent ministry, if someone came with a gas bill or eviction notice or whatever, we're trying to do what we can, but that's very limited. So we've seen just, when we calculated, I learned at the regional meeting how to calculate pounds of food into
meals.
And I was just astounded that over the 5-year period, we've had like 225,000 meals that every food giveaway, we're giving away like 7,000 meals.
Awesome.
And it's just, our team was just blown away with that figure,
Awesome.
Resource-wise, is it all a volunteer-driven organization? In terms of...
All volunteer.
Good for you.
It's all volunteer. And, when COVID came, like I said, I was doing the benevolent ministry. So naturally, I was the one to come to about, how about we partner or find out about the Maryland Food Bank. But I was very leery because I thought, we don't know what COVID is. This was the height. This was like March when they announced, oh, this is all COVID, and we don't know really how you get it or whatever, stay distance or whatever. And I thought, I don't know about bringing people together to give these boxes. I don't want people dropping dead and then they go, who's in charge here? I really was just kind of hesitant, but I thought, well, we could do this. We can space things out and we can make sure that people are getting their distance and have a mask and hand sanitizer and all of that. So we did it. And the volunteer base just kept growing.
Yeah.
And it kept growing because, like I mentioned earlier, because people felt like, you know what, I can relate to that. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I got a couple of hours. Where do you need me?
Yeah. How are you, Nakia, in terms of things that you've now incorporated going forward from?
Well, becoming a member of the Speakers Bureau has awakened my sense of service.
Awesome.
I was always one of those people as my husband, I would make these big Thanksgiving dinners, even though it would be the three of us and we would have all this food. So then he's like, what are we going to do with all of it? And I'm like, let's pack some stuff and take it under 83 and feed some folks. But for me, it really heightened my sense that I have a voice, that I could help others. And so one of the great things that came out of that was that heightened sense of service. And so I found this wonderful organization of women, African-American women here, Top Ladies of Distinction Incorporated, which is a national service organization. And so our goal is just to, do service in the community. Our prime objectives are our youth, because as you mentioned, it kind of root cause, right? Yeah. A lot of times if we can get the young people to do, their parents will follow, and also our seniors. So who knew out of all of that training I got with the Speakers Bureau, I would find this organization. But one of the great things that also came out of that is with my, working with Maryland Food Bank, which has a wonderful team. Ann and Ben are like awesome. They connected us to Langston Hughes Business Community Center, Carol Little. And so we actually, Top Ladies of Distinction Incorporated, we have a national drive to adopt a pantry. And so every chapter, we have chapters all throughout the United States and internationally as well, we're challenged to adopt a pantry. And so here in the Baltimore chapter, we adopted that pantry. And so one of the things, as you mentioned, about making it not feel like they're getting free food, right? Taking the stigma away from it, and also having meals, was that we came up with a spaghetti dinner. And so most people think spaghetti dinner, you're serving the actual spaghetti, but what we did is we collected spaghetti sauces, we collected the pasta, and we made pre-made bags, and we went out and served alongside Miss Little and her team at Langston Hughes, giving out our spaghetti dinner. So we collected internally, we actually used our networks, and I actually wiped out a whole row at one of the local supermarkets. So that has been wonderful in allowing me to be able able to do the service that I like to do and also connect that organization with what I'm doing with you guys. And then also just in my professional life, with my service and the work that I've done with the food bank, Habitat America has something called Habitat Cares. Kathy Murphy, who's the president, is really intentional about us in a corporate space serving the community as well. So we're located in Anne Arundel County, Annapolis area. So we serve the corporate team, went to the Anne Arundel County Food Bank and did some service there. So, so it's just been, you guys have really woken that spirit of service and being able to support and assist other in the connections that I've made between yourself and now you. I now have a new connection, being able to just bring other entities who would never be able to maybe know about you or know how the food bank works. And so, my trajectory is still to be able to do that in my day-to-day. My husband will continue to be my driver and all that stuff as he comes along.
And you'll get it on record now.
Yes, I'm getting on record. He's trying to retire. Yeah, he's trying to retire after our daughter graduates next year, but he'll just be with me at food banks and shelters and all kind of stuff. So yeah, that really is what's on the horizon for me, is to continue my service, with my organization that I adore, and whatever you guys need me here or whomever I'll be doing coffee talk with.
Coffee talk with somebody. We'll cross it off. Yeah, I love the sense of strength that I'm hearing from both. Right, here's what's been coming since COVID. Like, feel much more confident in your ability to respond, much more confident in the role that you're playing in your communities, and that's where we are as well. I mean, we're more confident about our ability to respond to anything that comes our way. I mean, we're very fortunate to have a huge network of support, whether you're a donor of time, talent, or treasure, whether you're an employee of the organization, whether you're a partner, whether you're a member of the community that we've connected with. I mean, we have a tremendous network that we feel very confident about our ability to leverage and be able to respond to needs. And so I think as I look forward to for the food bank, there's a tremendous opportunity for us to do whatever it is we need to do because of that strength and because of the lessons and the just the comfort or confidence that we've gained by apparently, hey, we can handle this, right? As long as we stay close to the community in terms of neighbors, what neighbors' needs are, what challenges they're facing, and how do we can we best support those, I think that puts us in the best chance to succeed. And so I think today, hopefully you heard some examples of a situation where a partner who went from kind of an episodic, a periodic response to a need in a community to someone serving hundreds of families every month in a variety of ways. This is what we want to try to build in terms of what our network looks like. Their ability to work with other partners of the food bank or other nonprofits and organizations in their community, whether they're foods related or not, is critical. And so these resources that are going to be even more needed going forward, and the synergies that we create there are really critically important. We're trying to promote as much of that as we can. When we bring our partners together on a regular basis to talk about that. So you saw an example what a good partnership looks like going forward. You see an example of using people who have the ear of folks in their community because they've had lived experience and they've thrived through that situation to where they are now to a recent promotion. Allows people to see that they can get through whatever you're dealing with. So whether you're dealing with it on a one-on-one kind of approach, or you're doing it at an organization level, we think they're good underpinnings for success for us going forward in terms of our ability to serve our communities even better. So I want to thank you both for sharing your stories, sharing your time with us today. I think we're going to open the floor to some questions, Elise, and we'll go from there.
Sausage is made for this. We do a prep call. And we're like, okay, that sounds good. This is magic. And so I just want to thank you for what you shared today, what you talked about, so important. So thank you for the magic you created. And so with that, would love to know if there are questions here in the physical audience, as Pat keeps an eye on the webinar part.
The virtual audience. Can you identify yourself, sir? Former board member, thank you.
Former board member, subsequently upgraded. As a current member. You mentioned in the course of the conversation, sort of the stigma that can be associated with requesting help. And I wanted to find out a little bit more about how you removed that as a barrier to asking for help from your respective constituents, especially as it relates to the food insecurity.
Well, when we first started, some organizations and agencies were collecting information, like name, address, how many in households, how many seniors, how many kids, how many everything. We didn't do that. We chose not to, because we were concerned, especially in the Black community, that people would be hesitant, or they would drive up in a nice car, and then you're asking these questions and they're very embarrassed about coming. So we chose as a team not to ask questions, a whole lot of questions, because again, it was during COVID. There was so much uncertainty. There was fear. There was panic. There was what's going to happen. So we just chose to give out the food. Just come through and give it out. And so I think that fostered some, comfort in terms of, I'm not being pressured to give everything, because I may indeed have a job, because there's the working poor. And, there's a number of people in our communities who are working and poor, and they're working very hard, but not able to meet the rising costs. And so, we just chose to do that to make it more comfortable. The other thing is, and I have to say this, is we chose to stick with a team that really believed in this. So don't come with your judgmental, what you should have done and what they could have done and, what they didn't do. So we made it, very clear that we're here to help and to serve. And so we're not asking a whole lot of anything right now. We're just doing that.
What do you say to somebody who struggles with, I'm not sure I want to do that. I'm not sure I want to go to that place. I mean, you probably dealt with that often, right? Or resisting.
Yeah, so there definitely is a stigma, of standing in the line and people seeing you, and everybody in the line needs help. One of the things that we've chosen to do is, as I mentioned, bring in the resources inside. Right. And so, what happens is we'll get food from a pantry. We have community centers. A lot of times, sit it out. We don't have an expectation for anybody to come and sign anything. It's just we put a sign up, free food, and whoever goes and gets it, picks it up. The other thing that we do is typically when kids are out of school, especially in the wintertime, inclement weather happens. My team will go into our own pockets sometimes and just go buy Chick-fil-A, and we just sit it out in the lobby because we know the kids are home. It's unexpected that they're going to be at home. Their parents still has to work. And so we just let them come and pick it up. So we don't make it an issue where you have to sign something or do anything. We just leave it out. If you take it, nobody is watching you. We've even done sometimes in the rent receipt, putting a little, local supermarket, $10 or $15 gift card in there, just because we know someone is facing hunger, because maybe we've done an apartment inspection, where we've had to check the refrigerator and the cabinets to make sure it's working, and we can see the cupboards are bare, right? And so they don't ask, but we know that it is existing. Or even sometimes a child may come and, see me eating a pizza, or maybe we had a team meeting where we ordered pizza and some sodas, and they're lurking around. And so, we'll just have sometimes Pizza Friday, and, the kids will come down, or whomever comes down. So really just not having an expectation, as you said. And also what you're doing, as I mentioned, my organization, we partner with Miss Little at Langston Hughes, and they have it set up as a supermarket. It was so fascinating that it was a line, but you got to pick kind of like what you wanted out of the supermarket. So I think removing the idea of what it could look like and making you feel more human is a great thing that you're doing. So that's just some of the things that we've done to remove that stigma.
I mean, physical space is critical and kind of creating that shopping experience.
Yeah.
And to your point of the, volunteers, we need to make sure that volunteers are taking the right attitude and approach to that, right? Because that experience is the end of the day. there's a lot, right? People
Yeah.
are like, hey, I like coming there because I like talking to you,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And so that's the people that they interact with there that gives them comfort too. So
Right.
to your point of making sure you're having people who are like-minded and who are
Mhm.
trained to really be open and warm and inviting
Right.
and creating that environment. So it's physical space, but it's also, the individuals
Yeah.
Mhm.
too. So
Well, and another thing too that we do, we encourage the people who are working, still working, to do, they may have coworkers and people in need, especially now, if they know people have lost their jobs, their coworkers or whatever, they can let them know about the food giveaway. Like I participate in a food giveaway. We have a food program and it's a farmer's market, so that they get the word that, they can share the word in such a way that it's more personal and not judgmental.
Other questions in the audience or online?
Oh.
Very
I'm Jim, just a donor here and have worked at the Howard County Food Bank.
Just a donor.
Just a
My question is, as I read your annual reports that you send out, I saw there were huge fluctuations in the percentage of in-kind donations that you're getting and the supermarkets that participate. Can you comment on how that works? What the trends are in that?
yeah, I'm happy to. Thank you. So as a food bank, we rely very heavily on donated streams as well as food that we buy. Those donated streams come from retailers of all shapes and sizes, but any major supermarket chain that you're familiar with is certainly a provider. Those organizations have gotten and remain highly efficient, right? They're not in the business of having food that they don't sell or buying things that they can't sell, right? And so over time, that's really kind of capped. That's a fixed stream of food coming in the organization because it's not like they're getting less efficient, so there's more food coming per se. And so as need increases, the only way we can backfill that need is buy, right? And so we end up buying a lot more food to help support the need. The benefit of buying the food is allows us to buy the food that we know that our communities want. And again, feedback from our neighbors tell us that we want to buy this type of food to serve this community, this type of food to serve that community, and we have an eye towards the nutritional content of that food as well. So the silver lining is that while that donated stream stayed flat, that we have been able to buy into supporting the need above that, but then doing it in a way that we know we're buying more nutritious food and the food that people want. The other thing I would say about the donated stream is we had this conversation literally yesterday. When I came here 8 years ago, our donated stream was very robust. The type of product, even was the same poundage, but the type of food was better, if you will. Today, if you compare 8 years ago to now, we get much more health and beauty, paper product, high energy drinks, whatever those things are, sugary waters. I mean, those of you who volunteer and sort our food, you see that, right? So if you were here 8 years ago, you would have saw much more vegetables and cereals and the type of things that our neighbors need. And today that's decreased. So on paper, it looks like we're flat, but the reality is the type of food we need that we really want to provide has actually gone down. And so I think that's where you see some of the fluctuation is that some of that food we don't use and some of the food we end up, there's less food is less of the good stuff and more buying.
technology, right? Yeah. We're really good. We're good at food distribution, but technology we're working on. It's all good. All right. Question. Thanks for your service. Wondering what is the aid those who are volunteering to help these ladies' organizations? Are the young getting involved with this?
Well, we have some young, but mostly, and I don't know, when I say some young, I'm talking about like high school and, in their 20s or something. But the majority of people are working, but older, working, but older. I would say in the 50s range. That wouldn't be me, but in the 50s range. However, we do have high schoolers, and we also offer them, because most high schoolers have to do 75 hours of community service before they can graduate. If they're in the public schools, then I write letters, giving them service credit for the 3 hours that they're out there or whatever.
And so for my organization, Top Ladies of Distinction, as I mentioned, one of our components is teens. And so we have a umbrella of that, Top Teens of America. And so those teens are high schoolers, but the organization of women, we range from, 21-year-olds to 190-year-olds, even those members who can't get out with us to serve in the physical sense are still serving and supporting us financially or fundraising. So we take all gamuts of age of volunteers. So if you're interested and you love service,
that's right.
come and join us. If you're a teen and you need community service hours, we do everything from community beautification as we came out for the launching of the the garden here.
Yeah.
So we came out here for the launching of that. We're working to try to get the young people to come in and do some planting with Kate, and they can get community service. We have a area we've adopted in the Falls Road area, so we get out there and clean up. So those volunteers range from young people to more seasoned women. I'm sure they're watching, so I don't want to be dismembered.
Not the old people.
Yeah, I don't want to be dismembered. More seasoned ladies who support us. Like I said, if we physically can't get out and serve, they support us in our other areas. So come and join us.
I think one or two coffee or Carmen's ago, we had Reverend Heber Brown here. And one of the things he referenced with regard to volunteerism, I'm seeing Robert was here, I think he was accepting the fact that younger folks, the power that younger folks bring is the power of, I don't have a phone with me, but social media and those type of communication vehicles, right? Leveraging them to use this tool as a way to get the word out and advocate on behalf. And so, because time isn't really necessarily something they can offer or necessarily have an interest in offering,
Right.
but they do have a comfort with using this tool as a way to raise awareness and bring it. So in terms of a more concentrated effort to approach certain folks, given to what their strengths are, if you will, one of the things with young folks that Heber Brown was saying is, obviously you're not coming out to help us in our gardens, but you can help me by using this, right? Getting the word out to where issues we have. And so how we can navigate and bring people's best to the best.
Use everybody's skills.
Yeah.
Skills, exactly.
And it's sometimes hard to recruit younger people because they're, there's so many things that they want to do that are so much more important than waking up on a Saturday morning and going to the, the church to give out food. However, that being said, when they come, and Elise can attest to this because she brought her 2 children, when they come, they're excited and they work.
Yes.
I mean, they work and I love it because they have the energy to like move this box from here to there. And I can just point. But once they do it, they feel like they've done something, they've accomplished something, and they're a really good part of it.
Thank you for making them work. Yes. We have another question, but they had a really good time. And I think, again, to your point, when you can engage younger people in it and expose them to it, it's a lot of fun and it's really meaningful.
Yeah.
So appreciate that. They still ask about you, by the way. So question, very, very much on our minds, USDA funding. So how are the recent cuts to USDA funding to the food bank impacting the network as a whole?
So this is where I was mentioning earlier in terms of some of the uncertainty. This is a very unpredictable, fluid situation. We're trying to separate fact from rumor and speculation. As an organization, we're doing everything we can to try to scenario plan and try to anticipate what we might be facing, so we're best positioned to respond, as well as allocating some of our own dollars and resources, which we just talked about yesterday, doing to try to fill some of these gaps as best we can. So far, what we know is that one particular program that we think was a very strong and robust program, which allowed us to buy locally produced food, locally grown food, a lot of it produce, dairy, seafood, also muscle meats. that that program will cease funding towards the end of this calendar year. And so it will obviously affect our ability to continue to provide a certain type of product that we've been accustomed to providing. We're optimistic that there's movement in hand to try to figure out a way to bring it back, because we do think there's a real economic benefit to it. We deal with 19 local farms and organizations, producers who we weren't dealing with prior to that grant. So we've obviously hopefully stimulated some economic growth and opportunity for those folks to grow. So we think there's a real kind of benefit that kind of crosses the aisle there that over time might come back. But that's the one piece that we have got word on that we know will affect the back half of our fiscal year 26, but early part of calendar 26. And then we're just kind of keeping an eye on other things that are happening as well. There's another program called TFAP. There's different buckets of TFAP food. Some of that food has one of those buckets have been temporarily halted as well. And again, we're just trying to stay abreast of whether that something can be reallocated. There's work being done at Feeding America level, advocating. And then obviously we're doing what we can on our side as well. And then we are going to try to buy more food to backfill some of that gap. But we're only going to be able to do that for so long. And so we're going to have to make some fundamental changes as it goes forward.
Thanks, Carmen. Question for our guests. With many losing their jobs today and the rise in food costs, have you seen a rise in people seeking food? Have donations been the same on the rise or lower?
Well, we haven't had a food giveaway this year yet. And I think, but we've been seeing a rise just normally seeing a rise. So we have anticipated that we will see more of a rise. And so even in our amount that we chose for this month, April, this month, we added additional food, just to account for that.
So I have not seen the rise in my realm. Everybody is just concerned about maintaining housing right now, the affordability of it, being able to continue to pay for their housing. And so that kind of has been the focus. We've been partnering with a lot of local organizations who've been supporting residents who maybe fell behind in their rent, who are in the process of falling behind in their rent. So supporting them and getting the resources for rental assistance. We see some areas where it's declining. The assistance part is dropping off. And so we're trying to support them and going to local places, to maybe get $300 here or $400 here. So I really haven't seen the rise. I think most people are preparing. I know for myself, I'm preparing. The COVID taught me how to prepare. So I'm in prepare mode. So I think a lot of people are doing that. But I think in what I do every day, it really is trying to maintain their housing, because that is one of the root causes of the next issue. So, and I think those that have already been navigating, like those that's been coming to your organization, have been constantly already doing that and have made that part of their, their plan, right? They're learned how to supplement the income that they had by going to local partners to supplement needs for produce and et cetera. So.
Three things.
Three data points from our perspective. One is that we're trending higher than budget with regard to the food we're distributing for the year, as we forecast that out for this end of our fiscal years in June. So clearly seeing more food going out the door. Two is we have a Find Food page on our website, and that number was up, I think, 130% as of the end of January, I want to say. Which we see as a leading indicator. Because if you're already food insecure and you're already working with an organization, you know where to go. So if you're coming to our website and hitting that link, then you are trying to figure that out for yourself for the first time. And if we're up 130%, that's an indicator of some things that are going to be coming down the pike with regard to folks who are struggling to make ends meet, who maybe just labored through it for a while, but now just can't do it anymore, or have had some incident happen. The third thing, and this is kind of ties into a volunteer opportunity. We do have partners who actually pick up food at our organization here, partners with smaller orders or within a certain geography. great opportunity to interact with them, just to ask them. So anecdotally, like, what are you seeing? What's happening? And so anecdotally, I can tell you that when I do ask, that they are seeing lines getting longer. So I anticipate that's going to be the case here for months to come.
Hot off the presses from our researcher here, shared with me yesterday that in March 2025, Marylanders' internet searches for charitable food were almost 2.6 times as high than last year during the same time. So that's plus 160%. So the negative trend, so it continues. So even the March data is higher, 160% increase. So we are seeing a lot of people who call the food bank looking, people who come into the food bank, and also who email us. So we're working really hard to make sure that we're responsive to everyone so that we can help them find a location where they can locate food.
Yeah.
So I want to be cognizant of time. Any other questions for this esteemed panel before Carmen signs mugs? I got the pen. Got a pen. It's gold. He's embarrassed. I just quickly want to say, before I turn it over to Carmen to wrap up, thank you. Thank you to all of you who show up through volunteerism, through your giving, and your partnership. We cannot do this work without you. We cannot do this work without you. We have these new shirts. They're not for sale or anything. I don't know why I'm saying that, but they say together we can make big changes. So it really is about the collective, that together we can make change. And I appreciate all of you for what you do to support us. I appreciate you both for what you do. And I appreciate Carmen for your leadership the past 8 years. We're going to miss you. We're kind of standing in the back, mourning our loss. We're going to miss you and these conversations. You've been an incredible leader. I'm going to try to make you cry, I promise. But we would be remiss not to acknowledge everything you've done. You've guided us through the pandemic. I think you're grayer because of the pandemic.
Yeah, I bet.
And you've led with your heart. You love what you do. You love the people we work with. You love the people we serve. And you just can't teach that. So thank you for your leadership, Carmen. We're going to miss you. I'm going to miss laughing with you and just getting stuff done. So thank you for your leadership.
Yay!
I almost cried too. We could have done that together. I also would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the team. You've seen Reggie popping back and forth. He's our amazing IT. He's agile when microphones don't work. When we decided to do this a few years ago, we're like, let's make it hybrid. That's easy. It's not. And so Reggie and the IT team, even when we have technical issues, just amazing. So thank you for being here today. And to the philanthropy team, who is in the back, they helped put this together. And Sam, our security.
Yes, security.
We want you to come back. Just stand there. But this team put a heart and soul into this event. I know we're kind of drawing to a close with Coffee Talk in general and today. But to the team, we have Marcia, we have John's back there, Mary, Kat, Megan, Will, and Kate from our marketing team. Thank you so much for the heart and soul you put into this. Well done. And then Jen, I was saving her for last because she really made this event happen. So Jen Struss, wave your hand. She made this all come together. So thank you. And to Crystal, our programs team. So it takes a village to make the Maryland Food Bank run. And thank you to our board members, current and past, who are also here. So with that, if you have any parting words, please.
I wasn't going to, but yeah, I'm going to try to do this without crying. As Lisa, this is not really a strength of mine for sure. But I'm going to stare at the camera so I don't have to look anybody in the eye, other than those of you at home. No, it's been an incredible journey. It's been the highlight of my career. I'm extremely proud to have been part of this organization and have small part in whatever it has been able to accomplish, which has been significant. So I just want to say thank you to everybody, whether you've been a donor, whether you've been a volunteer, whether you've been a partner, whether you've been a network partner, a strategic partner, whether you've been a vendor, you would have been a team member. All of you have played a significant role in helping us get to where we've gotten today. I am very bullish on where we can go as an organization. That's not to say there's going to be some headwinds and turbulent waters here in the near term that I know that we've been able to. We always say we're built for this. We've been able to get through those in the past. We can't do it alone. We'll need everybody's help in terms of time, talent, and treasure to help us. But I'm confident that we'll come out of it stronger on the other side, much like we have come out of COVID stronger on the other side. And so this organization is really poised to do some amazing things. And I look forward to seeing all the things it can do. And I then want to say thank you to my board members as well here, who have been very supportive of my time here. And I really couldn't have done any of that stuff without your support as well. So I guess this is my final coffee talk. It looks like I'm giving all the mugs away today. So there's no reason to bring me back. But again, I just want to say thank you to all, and especially to the team here at the Maryland Food Bank who make me look good every day. Thank you.